AITA for walking out of my wedding and divorcing my wife after my in-laws humiliated me? I, a 33-year-old man, walked out of my wedding 3 days ago, and I have not heard from my wife, Brooke, a 29-year-old woman, since. It all came down to the behavior of my parents-in-law, Gary and Diane. During the ceremony, they treated my parents and me poorly. It was not the first time they pushed me to the limit, but it was definitely the last, especially since my wife took their side. She had generally been on my side, and it was the first time she was not, but her absence and lack of interest in reaching out to me were enough of an answer. Brooke's parents never thought I was good enough for their daughter financially. When they found out I worked as a professional entertainer, they started treating me like I was beneath them. According to them, Brooke should have married a man with a traditional job like her sisters did. The eldest is married to a real estate businessman and the other to an engineer, which they consider proper and respectable careers. I do not see a problem with them having high expectations for Brooke. Any parent would want that for their child. But having expectations is one thing. Humiliating others for their profession because it is unconventional is another. Her mother even tried several times to convince me to change careers, but I stood my ground, and she called me a stubborn fool. I did not even bother explaining how complex and lucrative my job could be after seeing how narrow-minded they were. To them, entertainment was just a useless hobby for people who did not want to grow up and do something meaningful with their lives. Her father described it as a childish hobby. The first time I went to their house was for her mother's 55th birthday. I had never felt so out of place in my life. At dinner, everyone said a few words about Diane. When it was my turn, I was nervous since it was my first time meeting her, and I did not feel very comfortable saying something very personal. I still said a few nice, but rather generic words. She did not like it. She just started talking to someone else when I had not even finished my sentence. She did not thank me, did not look at me, nothing. She acted like I did not exist. Brooke's brothers-in-law were nice and treated me like a friend, but her parents ignored me, which was really humiliating. I talked to Brooke about it afterward, and she acknowledged that her parents had been unkind to me. She assured me that over time, they would eventually get used to me, that they just needed to get to know me better. I understood that parents from another generation often do not understand modern careers. So I let it slide. From that moment on, I stayed away from them. I was clear with Brooke. Her parents did not like me, and I was not going to force myself to impress them. I would be cordial in unavoidable situations, nothing more. One of those occasions was our engagement. Well, Brooke called them to invite them. They made a whole drama out of it because they were only given a week's notice. They wanted to be involved in the preparations. Her father said, "How dare you think that Kevin and Scott, the other two sons-in-law, will be able to come? You cannot expect them to drop everything. They have real jobs." Brooke explained that it would just be a small gathering with our parents and a few close friends, but they wanted a big party and to invite their entire extended family, including Brooke's sisters with their husbands, as well as aunts and uncles. The list was endless. Basically, they wanted to add about 15 more people on their side. Her mother said, "If you do not have money for a big party, we can fund it." Brooke refused, saying it was not about money. We just wanted a private ceremony. Diane insisted that at the very least Brooke's sisters and their husbands be present. That adding 4 more people would not change anything. I said it was not about numbers, but fairness. I was not inviting my siblings, so she should not invite hers either. I am as close to my siblings as she is to hers. Since we did not give in, her parents did not show up. Brooke told me their excuse was that they were busy with previously scheduled plans, impossible to cancel because of a late notice. I wondered what could possibly be more important than their daughter's engagement. At the very least, if you were going to lie, at least make up something believable. The truth came out months later at Brooke's grandmother's funeral. Kevin and Scott congratulated me on the engagement, and her parents gave me a half-hearted congratulation. Out of politeness, I said it was a shame they could not make it, to which her father replied, "Oh, we had better things to do with our time." I immediately asked what was so important. He stayed silent for a moment, then said, "Nothing. We drank cold beer and watched football." Brooke's mother quickly chimed in with an excuse, saying she had to go greet other people. I brought it up with Brooke, and she admitted she knew her parents had intentionally missed our engagement and that their excuse was just a pretext. Her father was not going to miss Sunday football for our engagement just because we sent a late invitation. I know many will say I should have ended everything right then, But let me tell you that those were only 2 incidents in 4 years. Other than her parents, Brooke was an incredible person. We rarely argued. She was not demanding. She was the most loving and trusting person I had ever met. But things changed during the wedding preparations. I had told Brooke I wanted a small wedding with few guests, but she insisted on having a big one with her aunts, uncles, sisters, and their husbands. She said that since we already had an intimate engagement, this ceremony had to be a bit bigger. Somehow, she managed to convince me because after all, everyone wants their siblings to be there on that big day. So I invited mine too. She also offered to cover 70% of the catering costs since she had more guests. That seemed like a fair deal. The rest of the preparations went well, but I dreaded what might happen on the wedding day. And let me tell you that some of my worst fears came true that day. I introduced her parents to mine, and the atmosphere was freezing. Gary and Diane barely smiled, but when they found out my parents were teachers, that my brother worked in aerospace and my sister was also a teacher, suddenly they warmed up and said, "How come this one is the ugly duckling?" My parents replied firmly that they had raised independent children capable of making their own choices and that they did not meddle in our lives. That should have been a direct slap in the face for Gary and Diane, but they were shameless. Gary started telling everyone that if I wanted a small wedding, it was because I could not afford a big one. Those exact words. He said I have a big family and they all needed to be there. He should take out a loan, go into debt, do whatever it takes to think big. In the end, it is his fault for choosing a hobby as a profession instead of a real man's job. That hurt. No, wait, it gets worse. My brother heard him say, "I will only bail him out in an extreme emergency. I will only do it for my daughter." Diane was not left behind with her comments disguised as courtesy. She said, "Take good care of my daughter. You got a complete package, my precious daughter, all the beautiful things that come with her, and especially us who will always be there for her. I know I am not as financially secure as those other sons-in-law, but I am perfectly capable of providing for a family on my own, my immediate family, meaning my wife. I have no intention of supporting others if that is what they are implying." While I was still processing all of this, Gary stood up to give a speech about how he and his wife would do their best to accept the love their daughter had for me, even though I was very far from their expectations. He laughed and tried to be funny, except he was not funny. No one except him and Diane found it amusing. He also talked about making sure my kids get a good education and do not end up like me. My mother left after that, and my father looked pained, although he forced a slight smile to hide it. When I looked at Brooke, she was completely calm. I tried to stand up, but she stopped me, telling me to keep calm, that it was our wedding. That is when Diane added that she hoped my children would be respectable and ambitious people. And that is when I snapped. She was mocking me at my own wedding after I agreed to marry her daughter and become part of her family. I could not take it anymore. I took the microphone to say a few words. I thanked them for their speech before introducing my family, reminding everyone that Diane was a homemaker and had never earned her own income, while Gary ran a small copying business that closed after both his daughters married men with successful careers. My words were clear enough for everyone to understand. Brooke tried to stop me, but I pulled away. I gripped the microphone tightly and walked down the aisle. I said I understand the importance of self-respect and how difficult it is to live off others. I am sure Gary and Diane can understand that because unfortunately they depend on their daughters. Ladies and gentlemen, let me assure you that I work hard enough to provide for my family, and very well at that. And feel free to ask me what my rate is. I know that like the other sons-in-law, I should pay a price for marrying their daughter. Do not worry, I can handle it. I saw them boiling with rage. Brooke was screaming that I needed to stop. She started insulting me when my dad tried to calm her down. She yelled that he needed to mind his own business. That was too much for me. She had not said a word when my parents and I were being humiliated, but when her parents got a taste of their own medicine, she exploded. I did not raise my voice against her parents once, even though they totally deserved it. I dropped the mic, loosened my tie, and left. My mom was outside. I hugged her for a minute and told her I was leaving. I was going to preserve my dignity, no matter the cost. I went back to the apartment expecting Brooke to join me. When she did not even that night, I thought maybe she was furious or her family had taken her away. But today is the third day and still no sign of her, not a single call, not a text. I do not know how common wedding disasters are, but this is definitely not a good way to start a marriage. Brooke is probably at her parents' house, and they are the last people I want to see right now. My parents called me yesterday, congratulating me for defending my honor. They were also worried about my marriage. They told me that if I trusted Brooke, I should reach out to her and support her, but also make sure to limit contact with her family, especially her parents, if I wanted a peaceful life. I told them I loved her and fully trusted her, and that I certainly would have tried to be by her side, but right now I did not see the point anymore. I have known her for years, and if she is purposely ignoring me, it means either she wants nothing to do with me anymore or she is punishing me. Either way, it is clear. If this is how a marriage that has barely begun is going to go, then so be it. What do you think? Should I listen to my parents and try to contact her one last time? Or should I start taking steps to end this relationship once and for all? Update 1. I decided to end my marriage. It was inevitable and undoubtedly painful. She was the first woman I genuinely thought I would spend the rest of my life with. She stayed by my side when I decided to leave my financial executive job to get into entertainment, spending all my savings to buy the best work equipment. She took care of me when I was broke, even though I did not want her to. I tried hard to ignore her parents' awful remarks because of everything we had been through together. But her outburst at the wedding and the way she ignored me afterward broke me. Clearly, she did not value me and did not feel the need to fix anything. And I was tired of waiting. She was ignoring me as if we were not even married. There was no way I was going to beg her to come back. If she did not want to work things out, that was fine with me. I consulted my attorney because I was not sure about the procedure. Some friends told me I could get an annulment since we had not lived together after the wedding. But it turned out our situation did not meet the requirements for that. So I had to start a standard divorce process. It took a month for the lawyer to serve her the papers. I expected a reaction from her after that, and I got one. Instead of Brooke, it was her parents who showed up at my place to pick up her things. They looked happier than ever. I told them, I will save you the trouble. Those things are already in a storage unit. Go get them. They took them and left without saying a word. I guess they learned their lesson at the wedding, that they could not get away with walking all over me. Shortly after, Brooke signed the papers and the process began. Since it is mutual and we have practically no shared assets, just some savings in a joint account opened a year before the wedding, I expect it to be quick. The interesting part of the update is Scott, Brooke's brother-in-law. He is the engineer married to her younger sister Emily. He reached out to thank me. Apparently, my wedding drama benefited him. He was shocked to discover that Gary and Diane were living off the money their daughters gave them. He had no idea his wife was transferring $1,000 every month from their joint account to give to her parents. Emily had access to the account. The guy was working 10 hours a day to provide a good life for his family. He trusted his wife to manage the finances, and she was providing money for her parents behind his back. After my wedding speech, he asked Emily if there was any truth to what I said. She replied that I was just being mean and that it was not true. Then he checked his account and discovered the truth. When he confronted her about the transactions, she first tried to downplay them by talking about random expenses. But he pressed on, and she finally tearfully confessed that it was a loan and her parents had promised to pay it back. She said Gary had to close his shop during the pandemic and could not recover. So, she was helping him for the time being. He told her, "You do not make a monthly loan. And what is Gary's plan to pay it back? Is he going to start a business or get a job? How does he plan to support himself?" She did not know what to answer. He put an end to it by making himself the primary holder of the joint account, blocking her card, and threatening her with severe consequences if she spent another dime on them behind his back. After letting off steam, I laughed and said at least someone profited from the disaster my wedding was, and we both laughed. He told me he never suspected his parents-in-law of being so unkind to me because they had always been sweet to him. And of course they were. He makes a lot of money. He suggested I warn Kevin, Brooke's eldest sister's husband, who could not come to the wedding because of work, just in case he did not know anything either. I politely declined to get involved in that family's business. I told him I was out of there and did not want to dive back into that mess. But I told him he could do it since he was still part of the family. So Scott was the one who talked to him and asked if he knew. Kevin replied that his wife had told him Gary and Diane needed financial help from the beginning of their marriage and that he did not mind. He makes enough, and giving about $1,000 did not affect him. She got married before the pandemic, so the closure of Gary's shop had nothing to do with their situation. They had always relied on their daughter's support. Scott texts me from time to time. I would not say we are friends, but he seems like a good guy. Last week, he called me again and said his marriage was in crisis because Emily was complaining about not being able to help her parents anymore. He says he is being lenient with her because they are expecting a child. I thank my lucky stars for escaping that situation before it was too late. The divorce will be finalized soon, and I will officially be a free man. Update 2. If we were still married, today would have been our first anniversary. And even now, Brooke's attitude toward the divorce continues to surprise me every time I think about it. She completely stopped communicating with me. Scott told me she was doing fine, which helped me move on much faster than I would have thought. The divorce is now finalized, and I have spent the last 10 or 11 months working harder than ever. With no other obligations, I dedicated myself 100% to it. And when you focus on a single goal instead of several, things usually turn out pretty well. But because of the wedding preparations, I could not dedicate 100% to it back then. Today, I would even say it is more than that. It is 110%. When it all ended, I felt like I had nothing left to lose. Brooke wanted to go to Hawaii for our honeymoon, and I had saved up to make that dream come true. After the wedding disaster, I took that money and upgraded my equipment even more to raise the quality of my shows and be able to charge more. Not only that, but I also expanded myself. I now have enough material to offer different types of shows. I created paid online courses. I broadened my skills, and today it generates a steady income for me. It takes up all my time. Yes, but it is well worth it. I think I can keep this up for a while, grow enough to make a real financial difference, and then maybe retire. Scott and I stayed in touch all this time. We even hang out sometimes. It turns out he is seriously considering separating because he can no longer trust his wife. These past few months, she started providing money again without his knowledge, and when he complained, she used her pregnancy and postpartum as an excuse. Her parents also stepped in to lecture him on how to be an emotionally present husband. He held on until his child was born, but now he cannot take it anymore. He is already living separately and talking to a lawyer. His only worry is that his son will not grow up in a normal family. I did not tell him what to do. He is a grown man capable of making his own decisions. Sometimes I wonder how Gary and Diane can be so selfish to the point of being willing to damage their daughters' marriages for their own benefit. They have already damaged 1.5, soon to be 2. For now, Kevin continues to support them, but I do not think that will last much longer. Update 3. Scott did not go through with the divorce in the end. Brooke stepped in just in time and opened Emily's eyes. She showed her their parents' true colors. After my wedding disaster, Gary and Diane took Brooke in and apparently influenced her against me. She was hurt because I had embarrassed her parents in front of everyone. Yes, the financial issue is a sore spot for them, and my speech brought the truth to light not only for Scott, but also for other family members. Gary and Diane cried and complained for days because according to them, they had been terribly embarrassed just for accepting small loans from their daughters. They said things like, "We raised our daughters, we sacrificed everything for them for 3 decades, and now that we are going through financial hardships, cannot we expect our kids to help us for a bit? Is it wrong that now we are being pointed at and embarrassed in public?" My answer is yes, but I do not think they care. This emotional manipulation worked, and Brooke stopped communicating with me, which ultimately led to our divorce. However, shortly after, she figured out the situation when her parents asked her to pay rent to live with them. She quickly moved in with a friend before getting her own place. Her mother constantly reminded her not to repeat her mistakes and to find someone proper this time. And by proper, she meant someone financially secure, someone who could become their next source of support. Brooke got fed up and cut all contact with her. Apparently, she confessed to Emily and Scott that she wanted to reach out to me to apologize, but she felt too ashamed and knew I would not accept. So, she chose to stay quiet and out of the picture. As of now, Brooke and Emily have stopped financially supporting Gary and Diane. Scott and Emily are planning to move to another state to get away from all this toxicity. Even knowing all this, I have no intention of getting back together with Brooke because her remorse cannot erase the damage her parents and she caused me. We are better off apart. That is all for now. If anything new comes up regarding this, and I hope not, I will leave an update. Update 4. I have a long update. Maybe not in word count, I will know when I finish writing, but definitely in terms of events involving almost everyone. I will try to put this in order of importance because some news is more relevant than others. For instance, Scott and Emily moved to another part of the country, and that is not as important as other things I am going to mention. I still keep in touch with Scott, and he tells me that getting away from his in-laws opened a whole new door for their marriage. It is as if being trapped in my ex-in-law's influence created some kind of pull. Now, they have a normal relationship built on love and respect. At least, that is what Scott tells me. I am not there to verify. So as long as he is happy, I am happy for him. I too have reasons to be happy because my business is at its peak. In the comments, just like from my ex-in-laws, I was mocked for leaving a well-paying job to pursue entertainment. Maybe you need details to be convinced, or maybe you prefer to stay in your bubble. When I talked about entertainment, I never meant children's parties, blowing up balloons, dressing up as a clown, and charging $20 an hour. I do not want to give details that could identify me, but if your clients are successful professionals who throw elaborate parties and need an entertainer, the fees per night can be $10,000 or $15,000. With just a few parties a month, the income is excellent. Add to that my paid course where I teach this trade. You can make $40,000 or $50,000 a month, and with that money, you can retire in a few years. But if you still think leaving my finance job that paid me $65,000 a year was a bad idea, suit yourself. And no, I was not making that much money back when I was about to get married, but I was not doing bad either. My ex-in-laws, however, did not see the potential. They only believed that a classic desk job was what would benefit them. Anyway, the world is full of people who lack vision. I will probably talk more about that later when I touch on a few things regarding Brooke's brothers-in-law and my ex-in-laws. Brooke finally spoke to me. I guess she found the courage to apologize. We chatted for a bit, and then she apologized for everything. I accepted her apologies. I hold no grudge against her. So I was not going to be petty and tell her I did not forgive her just to hurt her. My life is way too happy today for me to get mad over little things. After apologizing, she just stared at me as if she was expecting something more. I did not know what, so I looked at her too. Was she expecting a kiss or something like that? I do not know. But based on what she said next, I think she believed my forgiveness was the first step toward a reconciliation. I had to stop her pretty quickly when she started talking about us, because I have no reason to go back. We had another chance, and she blew it. Now, I am seeing someone, and there are no in-laws in sight because they have already passed away. I am not saying I am glad they are gone, but their absence makes things simpler. From what my new girlfriend tells me, they seem to be good people. Which brings us back to the in-laws who were not, my former ones. Kevin got laid off from his job a few months ago. Nothing unusual, just a restructuring. That kind of thing happens when you work for someone. The day they no longer need you, they can let you go. It just proves that having a conventional job is no guarantee of security. And it was not a guarantee for his marriage either. When my ex-in-laws started pressuring him to find a job and start supporting them financially again, they had already lost 2 sources of income. A third one was devastating. I think this is getting longer than expected. So I will simply say that Kevin asked his wife for a divorce. And there you go. Then Kevin came to my place one day and asked if he could use my recreational vehicle to sleep in, but I told him no because I never had one. Yes, I love that story. Just like the one about Mama Bear. It is always the one that makes me laugh the most. That is why I knew that when I changed the real names, I had to use that one. But no, he never asked me to use my recreational vehicle, the one where I supposedly slept when my in-laws made me leave the wedding. Because I never owned a recreational vehicle, I was never made to leave the wedding, and I was never without a place to sleep. Just a little inside joke. On a more serious note, my ex-father-in-law is looking for work. I do not know what kind, but he has to work now that he can no longer rely on his daughters. He still has one card left, the recently divorced daughter. But let us hope she learned her lesson from the other 2, and that when she gets married, it will not be for money. And there it is. For me, all of this already seems very distant, knowing that I started writing about this about 3 years ago. I do not regret it because it was fun up to a certain point, or at least the last updates were. I hope I will have something else to tell in the future, but if not, it will have been a good ride. Comment. I've been thinking a lot about this story, and it really reminded me how important self-respect is in every relationship. I believe we all deserve someone who stands by us and protects our dignity, especially on the biggest days of our lives. Setting clear boundaries with family is not selfish. It is an act of self-care and responsibility. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is choose our own peace when we keep getting disrespected. True love should make us feel safe and valued, never small or ashamed. Healing after heartbreak starts the moment we decide we will no longer tolerate constant negativity. Taking responsibility for our happiness often means learning when to walk away with grace. I hope this encourages you to reflect on your own relationships and what kind of treatment you're willing to accept. Remember that choosing a calmer, more respectful life is always worth it in the end. Keep valuing yourself, because you deserve real peace and genuine love. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.